Hey guys, this is Die Hard. I know normally when you see me uploading a video, it's got something to do with, playing SmackDown or, playing WWE 12 or whatever. But right now, I'd like to just take a few minutes to, I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to take a few minutes here and discuss a very serious matter that it not only affects me, but it affects, everybody. And it could have some very, very severe, repercussions if these things happen. And it's two bills that are currently attempting to go into legislation, and one is called the SOPA, also known as the Stop Online Piracy Act, and the PIPA, the Protect IP Act, also known as the Protect Intellectual Property Act. Now, don't get me wrong. I am all for the content holders, the people that own that material or whatever. I'm all for them getting paid for their fruits of their labor. Now, the problem with that is the way that the government worded these bills is extremely, extremely vague. And unfortunately, I'm going to read you a text message I received last night from a friend of mine when I informed him about it. Where was it at? Okay, this is what he said. And I'm not saying this to be mean, but this is what he said, and this is the reply from most people that I've talked to about this. I'm not too worried about it, but I'll research it a little bit. And like I said, I know that it's unconstitutional, so I doubt it'll pass. These two proposed bills, they do seem unconstitutional, which is very true. They definitely, I would definitely agree that they do break the First Amendment of freedom of speech and freedom of media. Unfortunately, us as a human organization, we commit lots of acts of piracy. And one of the largest things is on YouTube. We commit a lot of piracy on YouTube, whether we realize it or not. And the reason being is, I know that there's a lot of people that like Eminem and Metallica, Slayer, Lady Gaga, things like that. NSYNC, the Backstreet Boys, whatever. Justin Timberlake. Okay, you like those people. Now, the problem with that is when you upload, the Backstreet Boys' latest song, or when you upload Eminem's, Lose Yourself song, or Dr. Dre, Forgot About Dre, or whatever. Whenever you upload those songs, you're committing piracy. You're redistributing something you got illegally. Even if you own a legal copy of the CD and you ripped it, on through Windows Media Player or whatever you use to, rip media with, you put it on YouTube, you're breaking copyright law. It doesn't matter if you put under Section 107, under the Fair Use Law Act from 1958. Unfortunately, that law does not apply. Just because you don't see that little tag in the corner that says who the artist is and what the song is called does not mean that you're not breaking copyright law. You're breaking copyright law because that material is owned by the record label and the artist, no matter what. Now, most of the artists, they are, they're very proactive. They want you to hear their stuff, but they want you to buy their album. And that's how it should be because, I believe in try it before you buy it. But if it's a good enough product, then I end up buying the product. And so this hits close to home on a lot of different levels. Because with these two proposed bills, you will be able to, or the government will be able to basically go on to YouTube and say, you know what, YouTube, you have too many videos that has too much copyrighted material on it. You have 48 hours to remove all those videos, otherwise YouTube is gone. And although you may think, when somebody uses the expression, think of a world where your internet was policed. And you may think to yourself that this won't happen because we live in, we have freedom of speech and we live in a free world. Unfortunately, the chance of that becoming reality is very, very close to, happening. And the downside to all this is that us as people, as a collection, as human beings, I know we make mistakes, and I know we want our media and we want it right away. I can understand it because I'm one of those people. You know, we have Netflix now, we've got Hulu, we've got all kinds of stuff. You know, I mean, we've got all those nice gadgets. You can watch your favorite soap opera online. You know, you go right to their website, you watch the soap opera right from your desktop computer. We live in a day and age where your media is literally seconds away. And that's great. You know, technology is great. You know, we definitely moving forward, making advancements. However, with what I'm going to do now is I'm going to explain to you what these proposed bills will do. And this isn't just, you know, I'm not trying to slam on the government or anything like that. You know, I'm a taxpayer. You know, I don't mind paying taxes or whatever. But I think what they're doing in this situation is very serious. And so I'm going to start with the SOPA bill. Okay, the Stop Online Piracy Act. Now, with the SOPA bill, it will allow, if the bill passes, okay, these are only hypothetical if the bill passes. You know, you could have, okay, here's a real-life example, megaupload.com. That website, a couple days ago, got shut down. The creators of megaupload.com got arrested because it committed piracy. The government found it guilty of committing piracy. And that's a very unfortunate, you know, side effect to making media available to the masses. You know, for free of charge. You could do it as a free user or as a premium user. You could pay for your content, or you could do it for free. And the unfortunate thing is that site did go down. One of the largest online storage units, you know, available. And that just goes to show what the extent they can go to. Let's say, think back to when Iron Man 2 came out in theaters. There was, at that time, you know, people were questioning if the movie, or it was right, I think it was 2 weeks before it was released, and I was, you know, looking at a lot of forums, and a lot of people were saying, well, I don't know if this movie's really going to live up to, you know, what it should be. And I, like others, you know, we wanted to know if it was going to be worth paying for it at the movie theater. And so, basically, you know, some people had acquired early copies, DVD screener copies of the movie, for testing purposes, of course. And there was a watermark in the corner, you know, that was, you know, it was a Sony or I believe it was MGM or else Sony, but it had a watermark in the corner saying, you know, this is owned by whoever, and I think it was every 15 minutes the screen would go gray and black. Maybe it was Fox. But anyways, so people had those early screener copies. And I know I'm not saying that Iron Man 2 was the cause of all this, in no way, shape, or form, because piracy has been going on for a very, very long time. And so that was just, you know, just an example. But when you think of things like that, like I'll go back even a little bit further. Some of the older crowds might remember this. If you're over the age of 20, you should definitely remember this, because, I mean, I remember it, and I was only 12 years old when it happened. Or 12 or 13, something like that. But think back to when Napster first came out. And the song I Disappear by Metallica just came out on the radio. So actually, this was more like I was 12 or 13. This was in 2000. But yeah, so the song I Disappear was released by Metallica. You know, and at the time, it was only a radio single. And someone over in the UK had the import single. They had purchased the import single from online. Okay, I believe they purchased it from the Metallica website. And so they had two tracks of I Disappear. They had the original track and the instrumental track. And, you know, what they did, maybe they inadvertently did it, but they had Napster. And Napster was sharing his music folder, you know, with the world. And so people in the United States, they were like, Metallica, I Disappear, you know, and everybody all around the world was downloading this single. And it went from one guy having that single to millions and millions and millions of people having that one single. And all of a sudden, Lars Ulrich and James Hetfield were like, well, hey, we're not making any money off of this by these people downloading, you know, our albums, by them downloading our music. So let's go ahead and sue this guy, because he wrote a program that allowed them all to connect with each other remotely over the internet. And so, if you followed the news at that time, Napster was all over the place. You had James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, all over the news. You know, I mean, they were even on CNN, if I remember correctly, about the whole, you know, suing Napster, you know, and it was crazy. And I'm not saying that they were in the wrong for suing for the property that they owned, but they opened up a whole new floodgate for piracy. Because then you started seeing programs like BearShare, Kazaa, LimeWire, FrostWire, all kinds of other peer-to-peer programs, which all use the Guadalajara network, which is peer-to-peer programming, or it's peer-to-peer connections. Basically, what peer-to-peer is, it's when you play on your Xbox, when you play on your PS3, when, basically, even when you talk on your cell phone, you're peer-to-peer. So when I call my wife on my breaks at work, I'm peer-to-peering with my wife. And it's just one of those things. It was a natural evolution with technology, with peer-to-peer networking. And unfortunately, it got a little out of hand over the past, 15 years. And so we move on to the PIPA Act, and that's the Protect IP Act, or the Protect Intellectual Property Act. Now, this one is in, real big retaliation with, Google, or not with Google, but the very large movie companies such as Sony, MGM, the Video Games Association, things like that. There's a lot of intellectual property that is owned by a lot of organizations, and unfortunately, every time you put something on the internet, more than likely you are breaking intellectual property. I don't know if you remember this or not, but I think it was a year and a half ago, or maybe 2 years ago on YouTube, maybe it was less, but a family was singing Happy Birthday to their daughter that was dressed up as Mickey or Minnie Mouse. Okay, Minnie Mouse. Minnie Mouse is copyrighted to Disney. Disney tried to sue this family. They demanded that YouTube take the video off of YouTube because it infringed on their intellectual property. And how the heck are you going to deem somebody to be committing piracy or, whatever, breaking the law because they're singing Happy Birthday to their kid? And it's unfortunate because you're only allowed to play 5 seconds of Happy Birthday before you break copyright law. That is what would be considered fair use, 5 seconds of the song Happy Birthday. So just long enough to say Happy Birthday. That is what this PIPA bill is. It makes it so that these large movie companies, music industries, just these large media giants can ultimately, have whatever removed that they want to remove. And in a nutshell, the SOPA bill, or the Stop Online Piracy Act, is the most dangerous part of these two bills. The PIPA bill it's the same bill with a couple of revisions to it and a little less extreme, I guess is how you can say it. And I want people to be aware. I'm not saying you have to go out and go in the middle of the street and protest. I'm not saying that you have to go to legislation, go to your congressman and say, you have to say no to these bills. But if you don't, if your voice is not heard, or if you're at least not aware of what's going on, after the 21st, you could be facing a very different internet when you go to google.com, because unfortunately, if you don't know this, Google, they own YouTube. There was the acquisition, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, but Google owns YouTube. And Google, I love Google. They pay me a lot of money. Okay, they pay me money for videos. They pay me money for visitors to my website. So I love Google. I do. And I use Google all the time. My wife uses Google all the time. Everybody in America uses Google all the time. They use all these, the world's largest search engine. They use it all the time. I use Google at work as part of my job. And unfortunately, with the possibility of the SOPA and the PIPA bill, it would allow the government to go to the Google execs and say, you have too many links to websites that are committing piracy or promoting piracy or even thinking about piracy. And they can tell Google to go and remove all these sites from their index, which would then limit our internet. They can tell Google that. They can say, you need to remove such and such and such and such and such and such and such. This long indexed list of all these sites that need to get removed. And unfortunately, Google would have to comply with that. Otherwise, the entire Google site could be taken down. And one of the things that the government wants to do for the SOPA bill is they want to do DNS blocking. And some of you are like, well, what is DNS? You know, what would DNS be used for? When you think of it like this, every website in the world has an address. And it's not always just google.com or megaupload.com or youtube.com. The trick is they all have an IP address. And think of the IP address like a phone book, okay? You have, hundreds of thousands of phone numbers, maybe millions in the phone book, okay? Depending on where you live. Well, imagine a worldwide or a United States-wide phone book with just IP addresses, to certain sites. What the government could effectively do is they could go in and say, I want all these removed from the phone book. All these numbers will be unlisted. What they would do then is every time you typed in google.com, I'm not going to disclose Google's IP address, but every time you typed in google.com, it would go to nothing but a blank page. Unless you knew, their IP address, and you could still remotely connect with the Google website. But even like connecting with other sites, even if you wanted to normally type in like google.com, you would then have to go into a more advanced way of DNS browsing. And you would have to rename your own DNS servers to no longer have a United States code. It would have to be something from, Europe or Australia or China, something like that. You'd have to then alter your DNS servers to be able to connect to those sites normally and have them function the way they would presumably function. Unfortunately, that is a lot of work for just the common household computer novice that, just goes on there to check his email. He wouldn't be able to do it. And so with these two proposed bills, it causes a lot of problems for everybody, not just the United States. Imagine if these bills pass in the United States. You go to watch 16 and Pregnant, okay? Unfortunately, every other scene in that show has some type of copyrighted material. And I highly doubt that MTV went out of their way to get the copyright approval to use a Toyota Prius or a Toyota Camry or like this show I was watching last night with my wife. I don't remember what it was called. But guess what? There was an album cover of Metallica's Master of Puppets album in the background. Just in the background. Imagine if Metallica watched that and they saw that. I mean, they could technically, legally sue for that unless, the company that, makes that show had gotten prior approval from not only Metallica, but their record label as well to use the Master of Puppets album cover, so openly viewable in the background. It's things like that. This is the realism. This is what we possibly face. And it's almost becoming a reality. And I know I've had a couple of people tell me, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Even my wife doesn't agree that it's a big deal. But on the 21st, which is tomorrow, Saturday, on the 21st, if that bill passes, you can believe it. They're going to work all day Sunday. Even though the congressmen never work on Sundays, they're going to work all day Sunday. And by Monday morning, we'll have a very, very different internet. And I don't say that because I think our congressmen are evil. I think that a lot of lobbyists give them money. And, they definitely sway their decisions. Because right now you have 50 and 60-year-old men that can barely work a keyboard deciding what your internet should be like when you wake up on Monday morning. That is what is going on. That is what's going on right now. They postponed their voting until the 21st because of this uproar, these millions of signatures that were, supplied by Google and Reddit and all these other websites that technically would be considered third-party piracy contributors because they link to websites that could possibly contribute to the use of piracy. I mean, it even happened with me. My web host told me that as of the 24th, I would no longer be able to have service with them. So I had to cancel my service with them because it was based in Europe. Because I live in the United States of America. So just imagine if this goes completely global and every country, every state, every province, they all follow suit. Imagine what your internet would be like. You would go to yahoo.com and you would get nothing. You would go to google.com and you would get nothing. You would go to turn on before you know it, you're going to turn on your TV and you're going to see black censor bars throughout your TV shows. And I'm not saying this as a conspiracy theory. It's happening right before our eyes. It's happening right now. And I've already taken up too much of your time. But you seriously need to be aware. Don't use my videos as your only source of information. Just type in SOPA or PIPA on YouTube or Google. There's hundreds, thousands of articles, videos, all kinds of stuff about SOPA and PIPA. These are very dangerous possibilities that could go into legislation, and we do not want these types of things to go into legislation. And again, I don't condone piracy at all. I really don't. But, that doesn't mean our entire internet or intranet, it does not mean that it needs to be restricted. It does not mean that we have to have all these, limits on what we can see and what we can do. And this affects the video gamers a lot because there's a lot of those montages on YouTube, Vimeo, things like that. Imagine not being able to upload, your favorite montage. There would be no 3-strike rule with this new legislation. It's 1 strike and you're out. And it would be the bottom of the 9th inning. It would be game over. It would be endgame, Operation Endgame right there. And actually, I think I just broke copyright law because I just did say a movie title without, prior consent from Sony. So I hope if Sony's watching this, don't sue me, please, because I have a PlayStation 3, okay? I don't have a Sony TV because I wasn't going to pay $1,500 for the TV that I got. That was the same size. I'm sorry, but I do have a PS3. Please don't sue me. That is what it's going to be like in the future, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be your future. Every word you say, you don't have to worry about getting sued. It's unfortunate. And I know, like I said, I got a lot of text messages. I sent a text message out to all my friends in my phone, and I told them, be ready and be aware of what's going on. And, of course, 98% of them said, it's not that important, it won't get passed. Unfortunately, it is very, very important. And there is a chance that it could pass. It may be unconstitutional. But I'm not saying that the United States has not done anything unconstitutional. Do you guys not remember the NDAA that Obama signed last year? That was very unconstitutional. It allows citizens to be arrested by the military for an indefinite amount of time. Okay? An indefinite amount of time. And I'm not even touching on that. This is about SOPA and PIPA. And I'm definitely not the big government guy. I don't follow politics. I don't even think I've ever actually voted. Although I am registered to vote, I've never actually voted. But I did sign Google's petition. And you can still sign Google's petition up until, I believe, the 22nd or 23rd. Or it's somewhere within the next few days that it's the cutoff point, because at that point, we won't be in control of anything anymore. And I'm not saying we need to keep full control of the internet. I understand that some websites should be taken down. Don't get me wrong. I've pirated before, and I'll probably pirate again. I'm positive I will. But like the Pirate Bay, it's a great resource if you want to try it before you buy it. Although it does tend to take a little bit of money out of the pockets of, the movie companies, the music industry. It's only found that 3% of the world's population technically you make a large impact with piracy. 3% out of all the population, 3%. Which, in a nutshell, isn't that much. And I think of a time when piracy wasn't as big of a thing, but that was almost 15 years ago. 15 years ago. about the time when I was 10 years old is when piracy wasn't as big as it is now. And piracy is everywhere. It really is. So hopefully, hopefully these bills don't pass. But if they do pass, I fear for the online gaming communities. I fear for the artist that's trying to get signed. I fear for the person who takes a still image of something and has to try to recreate it without using any intellectual property owned by somebody else. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where everything is owned by somebody else. Even my guitar is owned by, a company. My computer is owned by a company. Everything is owned by somebody else, and you're basically just renting it. You don't own your possessions. Now our possessions own us. And so now we need to band together as a society, as people. We need to band together and, let our voices be heard that we don't want an edited internet. We want to have the ability to go to, Google.com and Vimeo.com, YouTube.com. Oh, and one other thing before I forget. Think of video streaming, okay? I know Too Twisted Merc does a lot of video streaming for WWE 12 and other games he plays, and the OTP does, and I do a little bit of it myself once in a great while. We won't be able to do that anymore because, unfortunately, Justin.tv and Ustream.tv and I can't remember the third one there, but Twitch.tv. Unfortunately, all three of those providers that provide streaming video that allow us as broadcasters to stream to the viewers, to get our name out there, unfortunately, they're all third party. So unfortunately, the government can go in and say, hey, they are streaming illegal content. Take it down or we remove your website. That is the future that we may face. And again, I've already taken up too much of your time. We're already at 27 minutes into this, and I've already taken too much time. So I'm not, like I said, you don't have to go sign the petition. You don't have to call legislation and say, or your representatives and say, don't pass this bill. You don't have to do that. But just remember, your one vote, even though it may seem like it wouldn't be that much of an effect, that one vote could be the difference, or that one signature on that petition could be the difference between, us being able to have a free internet or us having a policed internet that is controlled by 50 and 60-year-old men that have, pockets probably probably as tall as I am. They probably have pockets that deep. They really do. And one other thing, and I know a lot of the 13 and 14-year-old kids might think I'm joking when I say this. You really might think I'm joking. But when I was 13 and 14 years old, online porn, and my wife actually made me aware of this earlier, but online porn was a big, big thing for me. I mean, when you were 13 and 14 and stuff, you were looking for that online stuff. Well, guess what? If these bills go into effect, there won't be any more online porn, unfortunately, for, you 13 and 14-year-old kids. You won't be able to, go to, whatever website you go to, like footfetish.com or bigboobs.com or anything like that. You won't be able to go to those websites and access that material anymore. Because the government, I guarantee you the government will go in there and say, this is illegal, I want it off the internet. And that's what will happen. So keep that in mind. Even for some of you guys that are probably like 30 years old, maybe watching this video, that's fine. I don't care if you're 30, 60, 20, whatever. Whoever you are, you're watching this video. If you're some single guy or whatever and you watch a lot of the adult entertainment industry, if this bill passes, there will be no more free online. Yeah, you're going to have to get a blow-up doll because there will be no more free online entertainment for your pleasure while you're sitting at your TV with your bottle of lotion and your Kleenexes. It won't be like that anymore. So, just keep that in mind. There will be no more free music, no more free videos, no more free games for the people that have JTAG consoles or hacked consoles. It won't happen anymore. You will have to change your DNS servers to connect from outside of the United States if you live in the U.S. just to connect to the torrent websites. Just for the torrent websites. Imagine imagine what it will be like trying to connect to an actual, local website that got shut down. Just imagine that, folks. And again, like I said, I said it a few minutes ago, I've already taken up too much time. This is a serious matter. I know that you may think I'm just blowing smoke. But just go look it up. Go look it up on YouTube, on Google, whatever. Go look it up. Go look up. Just type in SOPA or PIPA, because tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock in the morning, they go into closed doors voting sessions. They're supposed to debate and do all their stuff, but guess what? They only need 15 more votes, and the bill passes. 15 votes. That's all they need. So just keep that in mind. And I do want to thank you for your time. Thank you for listening. Just know that this is a very serious situation. If you're one of the naysayers that says this isn't serious, I'm not saying you're bad and I'm not saying you're ignorant. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that you're not informed. And the best way for you to get informed is to go read the articles. There's tons of them on the internet. There's hundreds of them. There's hundreds of videos. There's all kinds of content that you need to really brush up on over the next 24 hours. And again, thank you for your time. This may be the last time I get to upload a video for you guys. This may be the last time. So hopefully, enough people see it and realize that this is the beginning of the end right here, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm not big on the conspiracy theories. I really ain't. I always get on people about that. I don't believe the world's going to end on December 21st of 2012. I believe that day's going to come and go. But if these bills pass, then, I'd have to say that the Mayans were correct. The world is going to end on December 21st of 2012 if this bill passes. Because at that point, think of it like this. The government will give YouTube probably until December of this year. If those bills pass, they'll give them until December to remove all that copyrighted material. So what that means is, even for the guys in FAM, now, I understand that they got their flashy new intros, the cool new intros. And don't get me wrong, they look amazing. They really do. The editing, amazing. They're beautiful, whatever. However, the songs are contented. Those are owned by a paid artist. The video game is owned by THQ, who is the publisher, who is the intellectual property of WWE. Go look up the end of Brock versus The Rock at SummerSlam. I bet you won't find it on YouTube. You want to know why? Because Vince McMahon, not even Vince, it was just WWE Incorporated, the entire company, was pulling down completions to matches because they want you to buy the DVDs and they want you to watch their channels to, see the completion of whatever it is. That is the future that we may be heading into. So just get informed about SOPA, PIPA, do whatever you can to, make sure that you're not affected by it. Again, I'm diehard, and hopefully this isn't the last time I upload a video for you guys. Hopefully this isn't the last time, because this would be a really crappy way to go out on such a low note. But again, thank you for your time, and